why all these people and creatures in Wonderland speaks with a British accent?
Because British actors are much, much cheaper than American actors.
No, because I've been to Liverpool, London, Manchester. It's not Wonderland.
Well, I suppose because Lewis Carroll, as he was writing, in the same way as like J.R.R. Tolkien when he wrote Lord of the Rings, a lot, and I guess J.M. Barrie when he wrote Peter Pan, they're writing a version of England in some ways, you know, an England at the time. Shakespeare, even though he was writing plays set in Italy or wherever, it was actually about England and London and the English court. So I think it's a version of that. Like the film begins with the iconic image of Big Ben. You know, you come through the mist and there's Big Ben, and that kind of taps a little sort of, a tradition that we have of classic children's stories.
You're right. When we listen to these stories, there's some kind of British about it. It's like it's coming with it, is it? It's coming with the story itself, all this British quality.
Well, the story was written by a British person, I guess, and would have been first published in Britain and would have grown from there. So I suppose it probably makes sense. And also, Tim Burton lives in the UK, and Helena Bonham Carter is British. So a lot of his reference points will now be British. I mean, I'm British, and I work on a UK TV show, and that's where Tim saw my work. So I guess you take from your environment, and Britain is Tim's home now.
And there's a tradition of English eccentricity, isn't there, which is different to oddballs from other countries. There's a particular kind of English eccentricity that Alice in Wonderland is full of. You know, the Mad Hatter, the March Hare. March Hare is probably a little bit further down the psychotic road, but you know, there is that sense of the oddball Englishman who that fits into this, I think.
Also, everyone in the Tim Burton film is pale. Have you noticed?
That's true.
Yeah.
I thought it was the glasses and the 3D, but
exactly. No, everyone is pale. So if you want to be pale, come to Britain.
Yeah. How would you say that the movie is close to the novel, to what we all know about Alice? Is it like a starting point, or is there more than this?
I think there is a starting point there, but of course the story of Alice in Wonderland has been filmed a number of times, and I think as soon as you say you're going to film Alice in Wonderland, you have to do a fairly faithful version of it. But this is something else entirely. This is Tim saying, no, I'm going to use that as a starting off point. But him and Linda Wolverton have created between them this new story. It's a kind of sequel. They kept the characters, they've kept the locations, but they've imagined what might have happened 10 years on with Alice. And I think it's great. I think it's the best of both worlds, and it's something old and something new.
Do you have to be totally nuts or just a bit crazy to live in Wonderland?
I think you have to be fairly crazy to live in Wonderland. That's part of it, isn't it? I think the whole point about Wonderland is that it's a place that where the gloves are off, so to speak, where we like the idea that we kind of understand the world and that we've tamed it and that we live in a civilized society, but actually the truth is much closer to what Wonderland is like, where things don't make sense and all is confusion and anything can happen at any time. A horse can turn around and talk to you, or a dragonfly can suddenly fly past and look you in the eye, and this is actually closer to the true nature of the world, and I think that's what Carroll understood in this story.
Finally, it's not so far away from Liverpool. Would you say that it's easy to fit in the world of Tim Burton? It's easy to get in his visual creative mind?
Yeah, for me, it was something that I, dived into because, so I'll start there again. For me, Tim Burton's creative mind is something that I've seen at work on a number of films of his. I'm a big fan of his work, so I would go and see Sleepy Hollow and Ed Wood and Edward Scissorhands. So I was chomping at the bit to be a part of his work, really. And even though he's a genius, he's actually a very approachable man. So even though at first you think, oh my God, how am I going to fit into his world? How does it work? Where do I stand in it? He's actually a great communicator. That's part of his genius, of being able to work within the studio system in Hollywood, but still be faithful to his own vision. And so part of that is being able to communicate really well with actors or with the technical people on the movie who can then render his imagination onto screen. So actually, even though I was nervous at first, he really puts you at your ease, and he gives you a lot of creative freedom when you act. He lets you, on the first take, pretty much do what you want to do, and then he helps shape and mould it and say, okay, well, let's lose that bit, but let's keep that bit, and I want a bit more of that and a bit less of that. and try this now. We've already got that, and it was just the whole experience was a pleasure.
Something you want to add?
He just makes it very easy for you. I mean, I first got given all the drawings of the characters and the world, and so I had a very strong sense of what it would look like. And the script was such a well-written script. It was kind of riffing on everything that we already know about Alice in Wonderland and the whole world, but adding to it and going further with it. So that kind of provided everything I needed. And then when I saw it for the first time, which was last night, it had gone even further than that. You know, it was far beyond all my expectations. It was a joy to see it all come together.